conference. And I just have to say, this has been so much fun for me. It has been a lot these last couple days, but this has just been so much fun. And I am so happy to be here with you guys. I'm so happy that you are all here. We're going to end the day with Melissa Smith from Myelin Community and Adult Education. Just a big fan of Myelin and what you guys do out there. I know Connie is just outstanding. I worked with Jen Monahan very closely for a while. It's wonderful what Myelin is doing out there. We're very excited to have Melissa here to talk to us about personal and professional leadership. If I can just remind you of a couple things, we would love it if you rated the sessions. So there might have been a glitch with that in the first day or two, but now you can go back in through the agenda to your old sessions and just rate those. Judy did send out the sketch form this morning already. You only need to fill that out one time, but you want to get those sketches. So I think that's all the housekeeping I have. Stacy, did I forget anything? And if you have any questions, Melissa, would you like us to wait to the end for questions, or can we ask them as they come up?
You can ask them as they come up.
Awesome. Well, Melissa, then I will stop talking because everybody's sick of Renee's voice and we want to hear what you have to say. I just have to say you look lovely. Your background and everything is so beautiful. I love it.
My front door.
Well, your shirt matches your door and it's just so clean and your hair is so put together and you just look so nice, Melissa.
Well, you don't see me from the waist down. You only see me from the waist up.
Do you have slippers on?
Actually, unfortunately, no, I actually have dress shoes on, believe it or not. I am fully, thoroughly dressed.
I believe it, Melissa. I believe it. So thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I have a PowerPoint here. I'm going to try to get this set up for screen sharing. And we'll go from there. Okay, can everybody see the screen, I hope? Okay, so a little bit about me. I've been in the adult and community ed for 17, 18 years now. I have a bachelor's of science in K-8 education. I have a master's degree in secondary education and a second master's degree in administration. So this is something I'm passionate about, adult and community education. I love what I do, and I feel like I just want everybody else to love it the way I love it. So this here, we're going to be talking about leadership, different leadership strategies, approaches, and ways to dive into this sort of existence, I guess you could say. Okay, screen share. Now oh, there we go. So some of the things we're going to talk about are the who's who leadership roles. There's a hierarchy that we're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking about approaches, styles, ethics, strategies, evaluations, how to get leaders involved in community, and just trying to figure out where we as community and adult educators and leaders fit into the community at large. So to begin with, we have 4 leadership approaches. The first leadership approach that we have is autocracy. And in an autocracy, we lead by authority. It's very authoritarian. People who use this approach are very, I don't want to use the word forceful so much as very direct in how they speak, very direct in how they approach leadership. They delegate as opposed to asking people what they want to do. They don't take criticism well, and they tend to push their agenda a little bit more. Then we have democratic leaders. These are the people who foster creativity. They're the kind that ask for input. They want to know what other people think. It's all about the team as a whole, as opposed to just me. Then you have the laissez-faire leaders, and these are the leaders who really prefer the hands-off approach. And unfortunately, with these leaders, very much like with the autocratic leaders, these leaders kind of have that feeling of not being part of the group at all. They stand back and they hope that the team takes care of what needs to be done. Our last kind of approach is human relations approach. These people put a high focus on people in the group, but they have a very low focus on performance. So here we see more of that hands-off. It's a step farther than what the laissez-faire leaders would be. And these people tend to have very unproductive groups because there is no actual leadership in that. Now, people who lead with authority, that's 29% of the leaders worldwide. So I'm talking about schools, businesses, corporations. They're very high effective, high productivity. Like I said, they don't delegate, they assign, and they have better trained employees. Unfortunately, on the flip side, it creates an environment of resentment where the employees will start resenting the employer or the leader because they feel like their voice is not being heard. That is because subordinates tend to be treated more like cogs in a machine as opposed to a viable team member. This approach, it is very easy to damage self-esteem. It is very easy to cause harm to your coworkers and colleagues, and it's very difficult to repair that damage. There is a time and a place for this kind of leadership, and these leaders work best in a crisis situation or in a profession that constantly has high demand, high expectations. These kind of leaders do not work best in an educational setting. When it comes to democratic leaders, they foster creativity in their team. They try to get the best out of their team, but sadly, only 14% of leaders around the world use this kind of leadership. This leadership is all about the group as a whole. It's about communication, it's about equality. However, on the flip side, these sort of leaders are not that good at making quick decisions. Because they want input of all their team members, they tend to drag their heels on coming to a solid decision. They're not good with deadlines, they're not good with emergencies, and they tend to have some underproductive employees that kind of fall under the radar because you have other members who kind of elevate the team as a whole. So some people can get lost in the day-to-day activities. However, that being said, this is the most useful and successful form of administration, mostly in day-to-day affairs. Then we have this laissez-faire, which is completely a hands-off. This method allows the team to kind of take the lead, but the problem here is if you do not have team members that are intrinsically self-motivated, you lose a lot of productivity. This leadership approach costs $450 to $550 billion a year in lost productivity. So this is something that if you do not have a well put together team, a team that knows exactly what they're doing and when they need to do it, you're going to find that this style is not the best style to be used in a school. Then this last one, imagine laissez-faire but taken a step further. It was developed by two studies, one conducted in Ohio State. So if there's any Ohio State people here, I apologize, but not the biggest fan. And then another study 2 years later by Michigan. And they found that there's a very high focus on people, but not a high focus on productivity and outcomes. Therefore, this approach also is not the best approach to take in many situations. So now that we know about approaches, let's take a look at types of leadership. We have emergent leadership, situational leadership with an emphasis on Goleman and what Goleman believed were the greatest aspects of leadership. We have transformational leadership, servant leadership, and supporting leadership. So why do we need strong leadership? Well, because we need to build teams that work. And teams that work, you need leaders that are inside the team, and you need leaders that are outside the team, and you need leaders that are above the team. Having one leader on top looking down saying, do what I say, is not the best approach in any situation. I mean, I've been teaching for over 20 years, and the best leaders I've ever seen are the leaders who lead from within. And they're the ones that create a team and that feeling of cohesiveness where everybody has a voice and everybody has an opportunity to share what they know to try to make things better overall. So situational leadership, let's talk about this for a minute. Goleman had 6 styles that he talked about: visionary, affiliative, democratic, coaching, commanding, and pace setting. Each one of these are very unique, and each one of these has pros and cons, and they have places that they should be used and places where they really should not be used. For instance, a visionary leader is somebody who has a vision and they want to share it with the people around them. They are somebody who is really outgoing and they want everybody to partake in their vision. These are amazing leaders. These are the kind of leaders that you see who are those bubbly, outgoing, and everybody kind of gravitates towards them. And these are the leaders that we remember most when we think about, presidents and CEOs. These are the ones that we really think about. This style is very positive. The second style here, affiliative, this is a style that is about creating harmony in the workplace within the organization. It's all about loyalty to the team. It is about loyalty to the corporation. It's trying to get everybody on board with the same kind of ideas. The third style, democratic, is all about commitment and new ideas. Here, the leader tries to rely on collaboration and consensus and allows for emerging leadership to arise within a team. Coaching, the fourth style, is about self-awareness and trying to build that self-awareness where the leader tries to coach conditions and things out of people. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, my daughter's upstairs taking a nap and I have to send somebody up to grab her. Commanding, let's go on to commanding. Commanding and pace setting, the last two, are both authoritarian styles. These are styles that are probably not best suited in the educational setting. They are very authoritarian. They are very my way or the highway, kind of, so to speak. Transactional leadership. This is most commonly seen with autocratic leaders. There's rewards for productivity, there's punishment for poor results, and this is all about rules and compliance. And again, it's more my way or the highway. This is actually the kind of leadership that we tend to see in schools, and unfortunately, it's not the best leadership approach. Rewards, I mean, think about this when we're raising children, when we're in a classroom, we easily punish for poor results, but we don't really reward for productivity. The other day in my classroom, one of my students did something, and it wasn't a huge thing that he did, but he just pointed out to somebody sitting next to him the page that an answer was going to be on. He said, I'm not going to show you the answer, but it's on this page right over here. And I said, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And he looked at me like, okay, are you being serious or are you just trying to tell me that I shouldn't have done that? And I said, no, really, thank you for helping out. That's, you pointed him in the right direction, but you didn't give him the answer. What you did was exactly what I would have done. And he was just shocked that I actually pointed out that, he did something worth praising. So we are very eager to dole out punishment, but we're not so eager to point out when something good happens or when, a student does something that needs to be rewarded. So this right here, although we use this a lot, really is not the best approach. Transformational leadership. Now, this right here is probably the best model of leadership because the leader acts as a role model and uses their integrity to try to fashion the people around him or her and to try to mold them. It focuses on growth and development, and it encourages thinking outside the box. Throughout life, most of us have occasionally maybe have been told, well, you think outside the box, that's great. But what exactly does thinking outside the box mean? Well, it means that you're willing to look for solutions where other people aren't willing to look. So this sort of leadership, it inspires positive change. It's about developing a vision and not just sharing the vision with other people, but trying to get the others to believe in that vision with you. There's higher efficiency here because, again, you're working as a team. You have higher productivity because everybody feels like they are part of the team and they have ownership here. This is where, the leader can lead from the front and inspire other people to lead from within. We have authentic leadership. This has been the gold standard for leadership. It's a commitment to bettering not only your organization, but yourself through self-awareness and promoting self-awareness of the people who work for you and around you. It is disciplined. It is all about what one says and what one does. It's not a do as I say, not as I do situation. Oh. Yes, mommy's on the computer. Sorry, that's my daughter. This is all about people seeking constructive criticism. Unfortunately, it is not common for people to seek constructive criticism. People see criticism as just being bad. They don't look at the constructive part. Unfortunately, sometimes we need to be told that, yeah, your approach isn't working, you need to change something. But on that flip side, the constructive part is, well, this isn't working, but maybe if we tried that instead, then we can get somewhere better together. This is all about leading with heart and integrity and bringing other people into that fold with you. Servant leadership. The idea of being a servant leader is not so much that, you give into the whims of other people, but it is more considering the needs of others in your group and in your organization. It's a commitment to your employees. It's a commitment to your constituents. It's all about organization that contributes to society as a whole. It is improving your life and the life of those around you. It's about trust and credibility and creating a positive environment. This is a wonderful approach. However, the one drawback to this is it requires time to implement. And as all of you know, in the educational field, by the time you get something that is a long-term project implemented, the school year is over and you have to start from scratch. I mean, we all have staff turnover that as soon as we get people into our alignment of thinking and doing things, something happens and then you have to bring a new employee in. You have to bring in, new students coming in every year. So this is really difficult to implement because of that time constraint and that time requirement. Leadership is not just about what you say and do. It also involves ethics. And ethics are one of those things that can be a little tricky to understand. There's three types of ethics. There's meta-ethics. This is the study of where and how ethical notions come into existence. You have normative ethics that study the moral standards of why society thinks that this is morally right or morally wrong. And then there's applied ethics, and this is looking at controversial moral issues and trying to find the merits in it. Such topics include things like homosexuality, gender relations, things like that. And once we put all these things together, we can see that things can get a little murky when it comes to ethics, because we never really know where we're going. But when you think about an ethical leader, they always do what is best, not just for them, but for their team and for their constituents overall. They're driven by virtue, duty, and consequences of actions. A little side story, one day last week, I was having lunch with my colleagues, and we were talking about karma. And one of my colleagues had made mention that they never really thought that of karma as being good karma, just karma being consequences of your actions. And consequences are both good and bad. That's why we say the consequences of your actions. When you put good out, good comes back. When you put bad out, bad comes back. So consequences aren't necessarily negative things. And that's something that we as leaders need to keep focused on, because we always tend to think that consequences are always going to be bad when they really can be good. Ethical leaders are also fair and honest, respectful. They are kind and trusting, but they are also trustworthy. I've always been the kind of person to believe that you are not going to be somebody who's going to be trusted unless you show that you're willing to trust others. Just like respect, you will not get respect until you show that you can respect others. It's one of those two-way street kind of situations. But ethics also brings us to this idea where as leaders, sometimes we get in that situation where we're stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea. I'm an English teacher. I teach mythology, so that's one of the things I love. And this is where that saying comes from, with Odysseus, who had gone out and he was part of the Trojan War. He fought for Sparta. And as he's coming back, he gets faced with this dilemma. Does he sacrifice 6 people to the Scylla, which is the devil, or does he sacrifice his whole ship to the Charybdis, which is the deep blue sea? And he had to make a decision. Was he going to make this decision based on truth or based on loyalty? Was it going to be a decision that benefits him, or does it benefit everybody else? Is it a short-term outcome he's seeking, or long-term? Is it justice, or is it mercy? So what it boiled down to was that Odysseus sacrificed 6 of his sailors so that he could save the rest of his ship. This is one of those moral dilemmas that, as leaders, as teachers, as community members, we don't see ourselves in a situation this dramatic and this severe, but we do see ourselves in situations where we have to take a step back and say, okay, it's not about us. It's about our class. It's about our coworkers. It's about our community. And we have to do what's best for them, even if it isn't necessarily what is best for us individually. So let's talk about the hierarchy of leadership. And this hierarchy that you're looking at right now is not so much as, I'm the leader at the top and you all do what I say, but it's showing that there's leadership at every level. So when you're down at the bottom, leading yourself, so think about students. Our students have to lead themselves. We cannot always be there holding their hands and babysitting and telling them what they need to do to be a good person. They have to lead themselves. And then when you go up a level, think about teachers. As a teacher, we lead a classroom. Going up another step, think about lead teachers, think about resource teachers. These are teachers who not only lead themselves and their students, but they help lead other teachers as well. Then going up, we have program coordinators, we have program administrators, and then above that, we have district administrators, your superintendents, your school boards. So there's leadership at every single level of school. So just thinking that you have one leader is a very foolish thing to believe, because we all lead in some capacity. That being said, when it comes to leadership and it comes to the person in charge of a program, the best kind of leadership is not the leadership from above, it's a blended leadership. And what I find is the best type of leadership is actually a newer model called holocratic organizational hierarchy. And this is where you have bubbles of people, but all these bubbles are interwoven with one another, so that you can see that the people who are at the top aren't at the top alone. They commingle with people below them and people below them and people below them, so that the hierarchy that we're used to with one person on top and multiple people below isn't necessarily how it should be or how it really is. When it comes to this type of program leadership, it's all about team building and it's about community. It is director-led and it's department-led and it's team and student-led. So everybody who has a stake in it leads in some form or some capacity. So this brings us into relationship building. As a leader, you need to know that you have to have good teams, and a good team is only as good as their leader. But good teams know why they exist. They create a safe space for learning. They allow for healthy conflict. Yes, there is healthy conflict, not the kind where you're shaking your fist at people and screaming and shouting, but think about a good, healthy debate. There needs to be that healthy conflict. You need a space where you can build trust in one another and feel comfortable with one another. Good teams build relationships by building rapport, establishing trust, and having open and effective lines of communication. As soon as communication breaks down, the team is going to break down. And once the team breaks down, it's very hard to rebuild broken relationships. So when it comes to students, staff, parents, leaders also need to have an idea that it's not just about their staff, it's not just about their school, and it's not just about their students, but it's also about the community. We have clear expectations for our students, and our administrators have clear expectation for us. But do we have clear expectations for the community as a whole? I've worked for Myelin Adult and Community Ed for 16, 17 years now. And we have always constantly had this conflict. We are in the middle school, which used to be the high school, now it's the middle school. But we have people in the neighborhood. We're in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And we've always had families and people who lived in the homes around us saying, well, we don't want your students loitering on our sidewalk. We don't want your students doing this, or we don't want your students doing that. We've had a neighbor literally sending pictures and saying, see what I caught your student doing? Well, we need to build a better relationship with our community. And how do we do that? Well, we need to put a responsibility on the community. The community sees that we have a responsibility to teach our students. We have a responsibility to make sure that everything goes smoothly inside the school, but what are their responsibilities? As a leader, we need to venture out into the community and we need to build community relations. And that is something that's very difficult to do, especially if you are in a program that functions at night or a program that functions in a federal prison. But we need to set clear expectations for what the community also needs and what we expect the community to do for us, because this is a mutual relationship. What the community doesn't usually see is that these people that are in our classes, whether it's at a night school program or in a prison, are people who are going to be released. They are people who are going to be our neighbors. And nobody seems to really understand that, we are doing the community a service, and that the community needs to kind of step up and say, okay, we recognize that you are doing us a service. We don't so much want the community to do something for us. We just want them to recognize what we are doing. And we need to show consistency with our students, consistency with our board, our superintendents, and with our community. Okay. Another aspect of being a good leader is this idea of assessment. The state says we need to assess our students. We need to show that they are doing progress and that things are getting better and that your teachers are doing what needs to be done. So we have tape tests, we have SATs, we have ACTs, and these are all parts of summative assessments. And summative assessments are what states require. But that being said, summative assessments are not actually what really assesses what a student learns. It just assesses how well they take a test. So we need to look at things more like formative assessment, which shows progress throughout a semester. This is kind of the progress that we need to start getting the state to recognize. Tests are wonderful, but whether a student can color the correct bubble on a test does not necessarily say whether they're going to survive or thrive out in the world. And as a leader, this is something that falls on teachers, it falls on administrators, it falls on superintendents, it falls on the community as a whole, really to take a look at how our students do progress. It is not just about tests, it's about how they survive and how they thrive. Education in the adult alternative world has taken a turn away from academics and has focused more on job prep and work prep and being able to join the workforce. And that is a wonderful turn that we have taken, but we don't quite have the proper assessments. And I believe that that's up to leadership to petition to the state to have them look into better forms of assessment. Now, what does this mean for the director of a program, whether it's a superintendent, a director, a coordinator, or even a teacher? We are all people who have to work hand in hand with each other. We need to work with our administrators who are higher up than what we are. We need to work with the school board, and we need to work with other teachers and collaborate a little bit more. And that kind of leads me to the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I will gladly take them. I'm gonna try to get out of my screen sharing. But unfortunately, you know, I love Zoom, but sometimes it's hard to get out of what you're trying to get out of. So are there any questions that I can answer for anyone? Well, if there is, yes.
A question that says, do you have specific tools you would recommend to gather feedback from staff on leadership, program management, and et cetera?
Actually, there is, let me find it. I don't have the name of it right off the top of my head, but it's called PERT. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but it is in my PowerPoint, and I have that up on the MACAE site for the conference on WOVA. PERT is one of those, honestly, I apologize that I can't tell you what PERT stands for, but it's a rather older assessment process. And what it does is it looks at administration, it looks at student, it looks at funding, and it kind of puts everything together and gives you kind of a snapshot of what your program looks like and where you need to take it.
We have another question that says, did you say a leader that forms a holacratic organization was the best organization or form of leadership?
The best form of leadership. And that form of leadership can be organizational as well. Depends how far you take it and how much time you have to put it together, because the best leadership approaches take time to implement.
Lots of thank yous. We have another comment about program evaluation review technique. It's a project management planning tool used to calculate the amount of time it will take to realistically finish a project. PERT charts are used to plan tasks within a project, making it easier to schedule and coordinate. Shut up, that sounds really smart.
PERT is a wonderful thing. I love it. And it can be adapted for almost any situation. So Karen, thank you for finding that for me.
And now we have, can an autocratic leader also be a leader that considers and values his followers' needs and accomplishments?
Unfortunately, autocratic leaders tend to value their own values and feelings more than those of others, because they're not a leader that looks at the team as a whole. They're a leader that looks at what they believe to be the truth or what they believe to be right.
I agree, Dom. That's one of mine. Melissa, this has been amazing. I have to say, private messages to me and in the chat, you are very well loved by this group. This has been a really informative, great presentation to end on. We still have some time though, if anybody has any more questions or compliments. I always like to end on those.
Mark, I see you said, so no blending of leadership styles. The best leader does know how to pull in all sorts of things. A really good leader, what you're not going to find is that a leader is a little bit of everything. You know, you have to have that authoritarian attitude every now and then, because situations arise where you have, you know, an issue that needs to be solved immediately. And although you want to take a step back and say, okay, team, how do we solve it? Sometimes the leader just needs to step up and say, this is what we're going to do, whether we like it or not, because it's best for everybody else. So yes, a leader is adaptive, and they can pull from multiple resources to try to be the best that they possibly can.
Melissa, do you know of any assessments that we could take to find out what our leadership style is?
Yes, actually I do. The Myers-Briggs personality character sorter is the best thing to use. It tells you what kind of person you are as a whole, whether you are a thinker, a sensor, feeling, judging, introvert, extrovert. And it actually breaks down based on what your personality traits are, what kind of leadership approach is more likely successful for you. So that would be Briggs-Myers character sorter personality test.
I really think this is a smart question. Every question is smart. I hate when I do that. But any strategies for working with our leaders if their leadership style doesn't quite work in the situation?
I have, where I used to work, I had a program director whose leadership approach did not really work. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but the only thing you can do is be diplomatic about it and approach that person and have a conversation with them. And in my situation, that approach did not work, which is why I became the program director of that in that situation. Sometimes there is no way to fix things. Sometimes you have to go from scratch and start over.
I hope I'm not missing anything. Stacy, I know you're on this as well. There are so many thank yous, Melissa, peppered throughout this entire chat box. It seems to be my verb of the conference. But everybody is just so grateful and so thankful and so impressed with the knowledge that you've given us here. What a great way, again, to end our conference.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed this as well.
Any other final questions or concerns or anything? You guys wouldn't be ready to start your Friday now, would you? Is that what this is all about?
TGIF.
How many of us out here are planning on taking a big fat nap and sleeping this weekend?
Oh, yeah, that would be me too. Yeah.
But it is Halloween, right? Any trick-or-treaters out there?
I have a 2-year-old toddler who's going to be going trick-or-treating for the
but I'll
first
wake up
time.
just in.
What
Oh,
is
I'm
she
sorry.
dressing up? No, Christian, I want to hear about your Halloween too, but Melissa, what's your daughter dressing up as?
Strawberry shortcake.
Oh, that is
Love
just
strawberry
adorable.
shortcake. Yes.
Christian, what's your fun plans for the Halloween weekend?
And probably take my nephews trick-or-treating somewhere. But of course, tomorrow, you know where I'll be. Go Blue, by the way.
Are we back there again? I really thought I had gotten us off that topic trying to talk about Halloween. Anybody out here who could care less about the football game this weekend?
I'm with you, Chris.
Gotta happen.
I'm totally with you on this football thing.
Well, that's fun. I have to say, if I were rooting for someone, I root for the team that Magic Johnson played for because he's my favorite athlete of all time. So that's MSU, right, you guys? Wasn't he a ball player there? Sorry. There was some good players, but we're going to have a good weekend because we just had a great conference. So everybody, thank you so much for coming here. We've just had a great time. We really have, so much work goes into planning these things. And I have to say, I, was not as involved as I should have been, but you know who was the Kelly Vella, Patrick, Judy, Stacy, Tammy, Karen. There are so many people out there who have put so much work into this conference. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to fill out your sketch form only once. Go back and rate those sessions so we know what you like. It's not about spilling out what you don't like, but if you let us know what you do like, we can offer more of that. So judging based off of this session, I'm going to say, Melissa, I think you're going to get some very good reviews.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you so much. Melissa, was there any closing remarks you had for us?
Just thank you all for coming and for joining me on a Friday on the last session. I really appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your football games and happy Halloween and safe trick-or-treating.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a really great weekend. And MACAE, there's many better spokesperson out there, but on behalf of MACAE, I thank you so sincerely for your time with our conference. We love you all.